Deep in Hebrew scriptures, there's a book that has puzzled and captivated readers for thousands of years, the Song of Songs. On the surface, it seems like a love poem, passionate and beautiful, between a lover and his beloved. But mystics across every tradition, Jewish, Christian, Sufi, have always understood it as something more. They read it as the soul's longing for God, the ache of the beloved waiting at the door, the garden she tends for him, the knock in the night she hesitates to answer, all of it a map of the inner life and what it takes to finally let God in. That image runs through A Course in Miracles too. The soul as a garden, and God as the beloved who has been waiting there all along, not far away, not withheld, just waiting at the gate that was never locked from the outside. In this episode, we're going to walk through the garden together. What it actually is, how we tend it, and what it means to clear the soil so something can really grow. We'll talk about the difference between religion and mysticism, why religion isn't the problem, it's just not the moon. We'll look at the two gardens inside all of us, the ego, which arranges everything to its own design, and the Holy Spirit, who tends simply by being present. We'll talk about the knock at the gate, why we hesitate to answer, and why that hesitation is so deeply human, not a failure. And we'll end where all of this is heading. What happens to every relationship in our lives when we learn to sit in the garden of God? Stay tuned. Welcome to the Holy Instant. A Course in Miracles points us towards a single goal, union with God. Not as an abstract idea, but as something real and available in the middle of every day. This podcast lives at that intersection. Mysticism, not on a mountaintop, but in a kitchen, in the quiet, in the mess. I'm Lori, and I'm so glad you found your way here. Okay, let's start with the obvious. What even is this garden? Here's what's amazing. Every spiritual tradition across the world has this image. Teresa of Ávila, Rumi, the Kabbalists, the Buddhists, different languages, different centuries, totally different cultures, and they all land on the same metaphor. A garden, your inner life, your soul, the sacred space inside you. Think of it this way. You know that feeling when the whole world is loud, your inbox is full, someone's upset with you, life's like a mess, but somewhere underneath it all, there's this quiet, this like bedrock. That's the garden. It's not something you create. It's already there. It's been there the whole time. Now here's the thing about this garden. It's hidden. Not because God is keeping it from you. It's hidden because you can't find it by rushing around looking for it. The ego will search every place outside of you. The right book, the right teacher, the right practice, and it always comes up empty. Not because the garden isn't real, because you have to turn inward to find it. And when you do, it's unmistakable. It's like catching a scent you can't quite name. You can't hold it, but you know immediately when you're inside. And that's what grace feels like. You don't chase it, you just suddenly notice it. And you say, oh, I'm already here. The best part is that love, connection, the soul is completely safe. Nothing can ever take it. Nothing can argue it away. Your soul is held by God and no one can ever do anything to it. So if the garden is already there, what do we actually do? Teresa of Ávila had a beautiful answer for this, and I love it because it's so honest about where most of us start. She compared our spiritual practice, how we approach this whole thing, to watering a garden. And she described 4 stages. And in stage 1, you're hauling water up from a well by hand, and it's work. And you sit down and you get quiet, and not much happens, and you feel distracted, and you're bored, and maybe you feel like you're doing it all wrong, and that's stage 1. You just keep showing up anyway. And then there's stage 2. You build a rhythm. You have a daily practice, and it starts building its own momentum. And by stage 3, you start feeling like you have a stream. Now the water flows on its own. Stillness finds you, not just on your meditation cushion, but mid-conversation, mid-commute, while you're just washing the dishes. You didn't turn it on, it's just running. And then by stage 4, rain from heaven. Grace shows up on an ordinary basis and just floods you. No effort required. The garden was never yours to grow. You were just one who showed up. And here why this matters so much. We try, we feel nothing, and we decide we're just not spiritual people. But Teresa is saying that struggle isn't failure. That's just what the beginning looks like. Just keep showing up, and the rain is coming. Now, before that water can reach the roots, however, we've got to talk about the soil. And this means talking about forgiveness. But not the kind of forgiveness that means pretending everything is fine or acting like what happened didn't hurt you. That's not forgiveness. That's just suppression in a spiritual costume. In A Course in Miracles, forgiveness is a perceptual correction. It's removing the stones from the soil so the garden can actually receive what's being given. Think about it. A stone doesn't look like destruction. It just sits there, taking up space. An old grievance is just like that, a story you've been telling yourself for about 20 years. I'm not enough. I'm too much. Love always is hard for me. That's a stone. It looks like it belongs, but it's blocking everything. Clearing the soil is slow work. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It's returning again and again to the same spots, lifting what's heavy, letting it go. And here's the line from the Course in Miracles I come back to time and time again. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Forgiveness is the choice for being happy. And it turns out it's the gift you give yourself. Okay, I want to address something because I know some of you are coming from a religious background and you might be wondering, where does my faith tradition fit into all of this? And here's what I believe. Religion is a gift. Every tradition we've inherited began with a real electrifying encounter with the divine. Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree, Muhammad in the cave at Hira. None of those people sat down and wrote doctrine. They had an experience that blew their mind, and the doctrine came later as people tried to hold and pass on what had happened. There's a famous Zen image, the finger pointing at the moon. And the finger is not the moon. Your tradition, your rituals, your beliefs, at their best, they are a finger pointing at something real and available and alive. The problem only comes when you start seeing it and believing that your finger is the moon. Or you don't even attempt to look at the moon. Mysticism is what happens when you look at the moon. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to leave your tradition to do it. Teresa was a Catholic, Rumi was a Muslim. A mystical path isn't outside of religion. It's the living, breathing heart of it. So who are the gardeners? Okay, we've talked about this garden. So here's a framework that I think will change how you see your inner life. Inside you, there are two gardeners, and they could not be more different. The first is the ego, and the ego doesn't trust the soil. It's constantly rearranging things, pulling out anything unfamiliar and calling it a weed, designing the garden to look a certain way to impress or to perform. And what we need to realize is the ego cannot love what it cannot control. And the result of that is it's exhausting to maintain because it's never really a garden. It's just a stage set. The second gardener is the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit doesn't arrange anything. It just shows up. It tends by being fully present, patient, gentle, and never demanding. It creates the conditions for things to grow, and then it steps back. The Holy Spirit is the rain, the beloved who doesn't arrive with a blueprint, but who loves what is already there. Every single day, the question is, which gardener am I handing the keys to? So how do you actually do this? How do you invite that second gardener in? Here's the good news. There's no secret formula, no technique you have to master. Just one thing, willingness. And it's available anywhere. In the middle of an argument, in traffic, at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. There are 4 simple moves. Pause. Just stop before you react. The ego moves fast, and love is very patient. Surrender and say silently, I don't know what this is for. Can you please show me? And that's enough. Listen and don't fill the silence. The voice is already there. You just have to listen to it and stop talking over it. And then just receive the information. Pause, surrender, listen, receive. Not once, but again and again, every time you remember. Now, the Song of Songs has this gorgeous, heartbreaking moment. She says, I sleep, but my heart is awake. It is the voice of my beloved that knocks. She hears him. She hesitates. But by the time she gets to the door, he's gone. And she goes out searching for him in the night. I think most of us know that feeling. We've heard the knock, and we've stayed inside. But here's what the tradition tells us, and what A Course in Miracles confirms. The separation from God is not real. It's not geographical. You're not far away. Trying to just close that distance. You're believing a story of distance that was never true. And Rumi says it perfectly. He says, I wanted to know the reasons, the knocking on the door. It opens, and I've been knocking from the inside. So, now I want to say something important. The hesitation. Completely human. Not a spiritual failure. Not evidence that you're broken or behind. Opening the door means setting down control. And the ego, blessed, finds that terrifying. Not because it's evil, but because control is the only safety it has ever known. Maybe your hesitation sounds like I'm not ready yet, or I'll do it when my life calms down, or God would take a look at me and my mess and just leave. I've heard every version of this, and I've said every version of this myself. But here's the thing. The beloved is not standing at your door with a clipboard. There's not an audit. The knock is simply love, asking if you're ready. And if today's not the day, it will knock again. It always does. The garden is patient with you. Here's where it gets really good. Because this isn't just about your inner life in some private, solitary way. This changes everything around you. When you start sitting in the garden with God, when the Holy Spirit becomes a real presence and not just an idea, you stop coming to your relationships so hungry. Most of us arrive at the people we love carrying a need. See me, choose me, fill me. And when another person becomes the only source of what we need, the relationship bends under the weight. You keep a score. You react to everything. You need them to show up in a specific way on a specific day, or with a whole thing feels like it's just falling apart. But when you're regularly receiving from something that doesn't have bad days, something that doesn't run out, you arrive differently, less reactive, less afraid, more generous, and people feel it. In your presence, they feel less like they're being evaluated because you're no longer desperate for something from them. The peace of the garden doesn't stay in the garden. It moves through you into your kitchen, your commute, your most difficult conversations, your oldest wounds. I am the beloved's, and my beloved is mine. That's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a completely different way of living. So let's land this. The garden is already there. You don't create it, you return to it. You water it by showing up even when it's dry. You clear it by putting down what you've been carrying too long. You remember that religion is a beautiful map, but you were made to walk the territory. You notice which gardener you're listening to, and you practice choosing the patient one. You pause, surrender, listen, and receive. You hear the knock. You hesitate. Of course you do. And then you try the door anyway. And what you find on the other side moves through every part of your life. The Holy Spirit has been waiting all along, gently, patiently at the door of your own heart. Walk into the garden. So take good care of your soul, and I will see you next time.